Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Interlinked, the official podcast of Neo Tokyo, powered by Shrapnel.
Brace for impact, gamers, and prepare yourself for the sacrifice zone with Shrapnel. The world's first moddable AAA extraction-based shooter, built by a legendary, award-winning team behind some of your favorite games like Call of Duty and Halo. And they are kicking off 2024 with an absolute banger. People are finally going to be able to get their hands on Shrapnel during their early access season. And they are giving away $3 million worth of prizes. So buckle your chin straps and get ready to dive in and try and get your piece of the prize. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have an extraordinary guest, one of the tippy-top founders in the Web3 gaming space, Jamie of Vulcan Forged and Elysium. Thank you for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thanks very much for having me, lads. Really good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Alongside me, as always, co-hosts Nick and Jared. Welcome, guys. How are we doing?
Living the dream. Another wonderful day in crypto gaming. Excited to dive into it.
Love it. Well, folks, since we last came to you with the broadcast, Bitcoin has hit 70K, all-time high. And the markets are pretty euphoric. People are pretty excited. We have some extremes on both sides, but keep that in mind. We might circle back to some of that stuff later, but just keep that in mind as we're going through the episode. It's been a very historic day. I think we're all really excited about it. But today is about Jamie, you and Vulcan Forged and Elysium, the project. Would love to get an intro. Unlike normal spaces or short form content, we're going for the long form here. So would love to just, for the record, get the story. How did you come to this place? How did Vulcan Forge what was the origin story of Vulcan Forge and Elysium? The floor is yours, my friend.
Sure, yeah. So Vulcan Forge kind of happened a little bit by chance and luck and a lot of hard work, I suppose. About 5 years ago, I sort of messed around, well, 6 years ago now, I suppose, sort of messed around with like an NFT digital art site. And this was actually way before OpenSea came even about. So I sort of had an idea of like digital art NFTs, put it up there. And it was it's a flop. It failed completely. Went back to my day job. And then OpenSea just took off and it was just like this enormous $1 billion company out of nowhere. And I thought, no, I've missed that opportunity now. There must be something else I can do with NFTs. So I thought about some gaming NFT ideas, and I had some developers made this very silly game called, well, it was kind of cool at the time, called Block Babies. So like they were like babies battling on chain. They had like weapons called battle rattles and battle bikes. And so we tokenized the cards of this game as NFTs. And to my surprise, like they sold out for about, I don't know, $30,000, which at the time for me, when, I was working as a translator at the time, it was just like, whoa, what is this? This must be an enormous industry. So then I sort of came up with the idea for this thing called Vulcanverse. Decentraland was the big thing back then. So that was, but it wasn't used much. And it was very sort of like walk around this kind of polygon looking world, not very good graphics. And I thought, what about like an MMO metaverse idea? So I just created this map, divided up into 10,000 plots of lands. We didn't really have much substance other than that, really. And just the land sold. And I guess that was our first sort of real sort of financing, naturally, no VCs. So we had money then to sort of think, okay, now we've got to make a game out of this. So we sort of hired a couple of developers. They were terrible. Hired another couple of developers and sort of kept working on Vulcanverse. And then before we know it, a community started streaming in and loved the idea of owning it. And the cool thing is about the NFT thing is that like, because they owned these parts of Vulcanverse, which is, by the way, a Greco-Roman fantasy world with like centaurs and minotaurs and all that kind of stuff. Because even though the game was completely non-existent in alpha and pretty crappy, but because they owned the NFT, like they owned a centaur, even though it had like, one leg on its face and, couldn't walk or anything like that, because they actually owned it in one of 100, they were willing to put up with all the terrible gameplay, all the development, all the transparency. Like you would never get away with that in like real games. I mean, you would be crucified. So that sort of kept the community involved and investing, and we sort of bootstrapped our way up, really. Then Vulcanverse and became like a Berserk game, like a Hearthstone kind of game, tower defense, even like a poker game. So we just sort of broadened our our strategy in terms of blockchain gaming, and then just grew to where we are now, which is I think about 15 games, and of course our layer one Elysium. So but bootstraps and a bit of luck at the right time, I suppose.
That's amazing. So just to make sure I'm hearing you right, so basically you started off, you had a couple of ideas, had an NFT mint go well. You were like, okay, wow, this deserves my attention. Pivoted into Vulcanverse and started building out a couple of different games, introducing NFTs as the funding mechanism from selling land to selling different characters or different Vulcanites, if you will. And then have expanded into now you have Elysium, which is the layer one blockchain, along with you have your swap protocol, you have your bridge protocol, and then you also have your launchpad protocol and all the wonderful things that are coming there. Maybe you can kind of deep dive into why did you choose the niche of mythology? Why did you go that route specifically? And then how did you think through, okay, we want to have a ton of different games. We have, a certain team size, a certain amount of resources. How do we allocate resources between different games? How are we thinking about that? Maybe you can just kind of take us through the thought process.
Yeah, I mean, working backwards on that. So to be honest, I think there's a lot of sort of, in truth, is throwing a lot of darts at the wall to see which hits the target. I wasn't obviously I've never been a CEO of a game company before, so I've probably made all the mistakes that any other sort of startup CEO made. Think you can do everything yourself. Think you can market it. Game developers are actually nothing like web developers. Web developers, everyone's kind of the same ilk. And nowadays everyone can kind of make a website, but game developer, there's a massive difference between a good and a bad one. And I think at the beginning it was like, right, let's try an arena game, let's try a card game, let's try everything that kind of works and what doesn't. And so that's probably how we got to that stage. So a lot of trial and error. You sort of find who works and who doesn't. But the interesting thing about the industries, and I always say this on these podcasts or whatever talks, is that the naive thought I had in my mind, I think a lot of blockchain game companies did at the beginning was, as you have the crypto industry and you have the gaming industry. So if you combine the two of them, it's going to be double the size, billions and billions of dollars or trillions of dollars, whatever it's going to be. And it hasn't worked out like that. And Axie Infinity, I feel like Axie Infinity gave us a false sense of courage in what blockchain gaming could be, because everyone started like tackling the play to earn. Then let's do play to earn. But just because it's big and popular the first time doesn't mean this industry is proven to be a success. It's not. Everyone's still fine tuning it, and we're in a very exciting stage right now because we're getting the proper developers coming in and making the proper games. But I always keep saying that trying to just take the Web 2 pie into the Web 3 pie, I don't know if that's a strategy to do it. I really think it's a case of embracing what blockchain has in terms of what it can offer in games, because people are always going to download the Grand Theft Autos. They're always going to pay for Warcraft, Fortnite and Warcraft. These would be perfect NFT games, but they're not doing that for a reason. They feel they can make more money on people actually paying, with their credit card. So I feel like we have to embrace blockchain a lot more. So that's the sort of journey we got and my overall sort of view on where things are.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting point. I think we can all think of maybe a dozen games that have claimed to be, hey, I'm going to be the Web3 Call of Duty. I'm going to be the Web3 World of Warcraft. They could end up being sort of brought down by their own success, because if they were ever very, very successful, Activision could just be like, hey, we've already got the, best first person shooter. Why don't we just hire all these Web3 devs and knock them out?
Right.
So I think the best, most stable foundation are the ones who figure out how to utilize blockchain in order to bring a new feature to gamers. What do you think are some of the things that excite you about blockchain, some of the potential to create sort of new features that make these games unique?
Yeah, I think there are three main things I think we should be stressing and sort of focusing on as blockchain game companies. And the first of all is obviously goes without saying ownership, the whole NFT ownership. There's something about that. It's not just for sort of monetary purposes. Say because it's one of 100, it's owned more. But there is something about that emotional attachment that really does get gamers in, knowing it's from the blockchain. knowing it is but in theory, the centralized game could go under and the NFT couldn't be used in that game anymore. But the fact it's still in their wallet, that gives us a double layer of sort of emotional attachment people have. The second is also the economy. I'm really kind of not anti play to earn, but I think we've had that trial and error now. There's reasons it doesn't work, not just simply the simple inflation of paying people to play your game, but the fact it takes out the players out of that fantasy bubble they're in and into real life. And those two things are pretty incongruent. They don't work too well. And I think that's not working so well. And the third, so I forgot what the third was, but I'm sure it was fascinating.
Well, it feels like this season, the new play to earn is the play to airdrop. That seems to be potentially a new meta that's coming with this cycle. How do you view the sustainability of play to airdrop?
Well, again, now to see, I like the idea of play to earn an NFT, sort of play to sort of grind your way up to earn an NFT, because that's not so, what shall I say, crude, as in like Axie Infinity, like play to earn money, because that's what SLP was. Because then what you do is, if people are playing to earn, then they don't care about the fun. You can't have them both. It's very, very, very difficult to have them both. And if people are just playing just for to earn money, then the ceiling of development is going to be very low. They don't need to make the next Call of Duty, because Axie Infinity was like some bubbles fighting, but that was ample enough for people to sort of earn on it. So the ceiling development is going to be low. So play to airdrop, I think, if they're in-game assets, I think the key is to keep the economy within the game. Like, play to earn a higher level Minotaur, Sphinx, or whatever within our Greco-Roman mythology, and that would work. And I think, I don't know what you're going to say. I think play to airdrops, it's great. It gets people immersed in your game, but the trouble is, you ask yourself, then are you just bribing people to kind of play your game? And that's the trouble. And in the beginning, that may work because your game isn't up to par. But if people are playing your game only sort of to earn cash, you may as well just make a DEX. And I think people are all still trying to working out how it all joins. And that's what the third thing was I was going to talk about. It is the economy that blockchain offers. There's something about that, there is, blockchain provides a transparent economy. And so you can see money transferring immutably between two people, and using that within a game, it is perfect. I mean, I always think RuneScape would be the ultimate blockchain game, because if you can incorporate economy in a fun way in a game, then blockchain's perfect for that. But it's getting that right mix, I suppose.
Yeah, and I love the idea of, I think the play to earn model, I think you're 100% right. It's just not sustainable. I do like the idea of play to earn airdrop, but I love the fact that you mentioned the in-game asset, because to me, when you play a game, you play the game, your character upgrades, they get a better sword, and that sort of fits right in with the fact that now that NFT either is enhanced, it changes, or you get a brand new one with a new sword, a new cloak, whatever that fits with the game. But I wanted to find out what's your thought of balancing when you have NFTs that are already there in the game. What is your thought on balancing with bringing new people in that maybe just want to play and maybe aren't ready to take that leap to either buy it or actually have a wallet, just want to try it out? What's your thought on that, and how to bring those people in and sort of evangelize the blockchain to them, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think first of all, you've got to work out who your audience is for. It's to get as many people as possible because you believe the game is fun, but you want to pivot to blockchain eventually. Then you simply make it a Web 2 experience. And then after they complete 10, 12 levels, they say, oh, look, you've earned this. If you want to claim it, then you're going to have to follow these instructions. So some of our mobile games do that, where you actually play normal on an infinite runner kind of thing. And it says, oh, you've earned 5 lava. Go and connect to a MetaMask. So they can sort of learn the second way. But again, you've got to ask, who are you trying to get in? I think none of us really sort of asked that question at the beginning. Are we targeting the Web 2 gamers? I mean, that's the thing with what's the word? The big companies, they have dipped their toes a little bit into Web3, and they're still getting so stung. It's like, I remember that Ubisoft video they put up introducing their first NFT like last year. And it was just, they had to take it down because it got so many crazy comments. So it might be that your demographic is, and this isn't a bad thing. I think people think, okay, gaming's got billions of users, Web3 gaming hasn't got many. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. We could be targeting a new demographic where people are used to collecting their wallets. You have to remember, like, the meme coins and the NFTs, all this kind of stuff. It's a niche. It's a niche of people that are less but they can spend more. And, it's just that kind of meme culture. And I don't think crypto gaming will remain like that, but I certainly believe that crypto gaming has a third demographic coming out. And I don't see any problem with trying to embrace that, as it were. I mean, it's very hard to value a crypto gaming company because you're always going to include the token valuation. Now, these things are just impossible to, verify how big a company really is. Blizzard can say consoles were sold this year. We know that's profit. Sandbox, Axie, Peer, Vulcan Forged, ever could say, oh, we're worth that. But no, the token is worth that. What's the ins and outs? So it's still in its infancy. It really is. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I would start with the Web 2 start, and then at the end sort of tweak them in to Web 3.
Yeah, it's interesting. I swear Ubisoft must have some sort of degen in their like upper management because they come into the space, take a licking, sort of regroup for like a few months, make another announcement. Then they're partnering with IMX. That sort of cooled off for a little bit. They caught some more flack. And now just sort of breaking is they're back again. So they've got to have either, and I guess Ubisoft has always been pretty open to innovation. They made the Assassin's Creed VR. They're always sort of experimenting, but it is certainly exciting that they see the value enough that they've taken a licking now twice and they're coming back for thirds.
Right. Yeah. But also you've got to sort of wonder, are they doing it because they want to profit, or are they doing it because everyone else did it? I mean, the whole metaverse theme a couple of years ago where Nike, Adidas, Gucci, everyone was part of it. Is it just to say, look, well, my brand's part of it too? I don't think they profited much from it, but yeah, we'll see. It's nice they're experimenting.
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to be cognizant of, the narrative whack-a-mole. I mean, there's plenty of games that even in our space that AI started to take off and they're like, oh, I know we're mostly a Web3 game, but we actually have this component that we never talked about until it was super popular, and we're actually an AI gaming project.
Yeah. Well, we're guilty for that too. And I'm sure every company out there is, all of a sudden like, oh, we've got AI Metascapes, it just, last week we didn't, but now you can create a skybox from AI. Let's plaster AI everywhere.
And I think those games are going to be rewarded because, you look at valuations when you start to compare as things get heated up. And who do you compare against? You compare against Blizzard, you compare against Activision. When a game trucks past Activision's or market cap, you kind of got to go, like, what is this being based on? But if you look over at AI, NVIDIA is now worth 2 trillion plus. And so, you tap into that market, then the Moon Boy math becomes even more Moon Boy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're either on the cusp of something which is good. It's either going to be huge or it's not. I think a blockchain game. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground. I think it's going to explode where if a kid says, has your game got an NFT or can you see your scores on the blockchain? That's when you've made it. And I still think we're making those inroads at the beginning. And of course, we wouldn't be here if we weren't positive about it.
And what do you think it's going to look like, or what do you think it's going to take for that to occur? Like, what are the critical, if that's the result, that's the pie. What's the recipe and the ingredients to make that pie?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, most people would instantly say users or the Web 2 gamers come in, but I think it's going to be something unique. I think the game will have to offer something which utilizes blockchain, which cannot be done in another game. There are some AAA games coming out now, which look good. But again, I think the Web 2 gamers are going to stick with the Web 2 gamers. There's going to be that aha moment where someone says, oh, look, I can do this because it's on blockchain. People thought that was a play to earn. But again, I think that was like a short stop until the real big thing comes in. Whether or not that's some sort of, global global access to NFTs that any game can use. So you've got your Vulcanite up on the blockchain. It's got some stats, attack, defense, and any game can use those stats. You think, oh, why didn't all games do this? But something which is transparent and immutable, now that all the games would do that. But I think it's going to be something tech-wise, not gameplay-wise, which I think will do it.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see. And it's interesting you mentioned tech-wise is what'll get people in. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens. And then is it going to be like a, cascading effect where one really hits mainstream and then a bunch of people come in and then they're like, okay, wow, this is legitimate. And then, people kind of spread out and around. sort similar to kind of the adoption of crypto as a whole, of like, okay, everybody got in on Bitcoin first, and then over time more and more became more and more prevalent, and now there's thousands that have significant adoption from a market cap perspective. So it'd be really interesting to see like what happens after that, and how then does traditional gaming or Web2 gaming, how does that then merge or combine with Web3 gaming? Like, does Web3 gaming become just the tech that's under the hood, that's kind of like back here, and then everything's just gaming? Or does Web3 stay a niche forever?
I think it won't be a niche forever, but that doesn't mean it will merge into Web 2. I think Web 3 gaming will have it'll become its own beast. And I think you're right. I think something will happen similar to Axie Infinity. It's just the trouble with that was it was just the model wasn't sustainable. You saw what happened with Axie Infinity. The whole world heard about it. There were mainstream articles picking out about it, and every game tried to cascade and follow suit. But the underlying model of that wasn't working. So it will take another part of blockchain functionality within a game that will suddenly blow up, and then people will hear about it. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't take a lot for a blockchain game to blow up in terms of users. I mean, even compared to like some of the Web2 games, Axie Infinity wasn't a fraction of that. But because it was blockchain, it was like, and because, people in the Philippines and some other countries were using that money, that's why it made the headlines. So yeah, I think it will be something similar to that, indeed.
And thinking about just the idea of play to earn, and people being able to, generate and achieve or extract some sort of value. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you see that playing out within the Vulcan Forged Elysium ecosystem? Because it seems like what kind of started off was there's PYR and then there's lava. And the lava was the in-game currency that people were able to earn. PYR was more of a become a landholder and stake, and you're able to get based on a pretty robust set of math equations, you're able to get some sort of yield there. But then you leveled that up big time when you introduced Elysium as its own standalone blockchain with Lava as the gas token, and then built all of the other products within the whole ecosystem on top of Elysium, for example, Metascapes and whatnot. I believe, just from reading the documentation thoroughly, I believe that, that is all built on top of the Elysium blockchain. So maybe you could just kind of talk about like, okay, there was like P2E 1.0, maybe you guys are pioneering 2.0, and maybe just kind of talk us through anything that I missed there of how that works, and then just how you're thinking about that in general.
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of the good things you mentioned there, like, Elysium and Metascapes using Lava, it came as a result of us kind of not regretting, but no, we might have made a mistake introducing the secondary token. Because remember, when SL, we kind of launched very much at the same time as Axie Infinity. I mean, we were out before, but Axie Infinity blew up before we did. And so we saw, they had SLP. It was very, very, functional. It was going well, we thought. And we didn't know much about the play-to-earn economy. So we thought, we need a secondary token too. So we had Lava, and then we sort of realized that, we have the same problems they do. So what we'll do is we'll start putting band-aids on what they didn't fix. We made Lava limited instead of infinite elastic. And we thought, we can't just have it, people are still gonna just sell it all the time. So then we thought, well, if we have a blockchain, we can use that as a gas for the blockchain. So then, some people are earning it and playing, and they're going to sell it to the people using the blockchain. So we realized if you give lots of utility to that secondary token, then there's less buy-sell pressure. So the economies balance out. Really, though, I mean, if you look at it at a high level, that all you're doing is kind of fixing a problem and just trying to balance out that problem all the time. So so then we just introduced the burning mechanism, where it literally is every transaction there is Elysium, a bit of Lava does burn. So that at least kind of keeps the intrinsic value of Lava, if in theory things work together. But in retrospect, I would have kept PYR as the only token. But we are where we are now. We wouldn't have Elysium if we didn't have Lava. So because of Lava, it brought us the blockchain. So I guess we have to be thankful for that.
Yeah, and it's a really cool ecosystem and how it all works too, because there is demand for PYR within the ecosystem. Like you need it to increase your ability to perform within the game. Like just thinking about Vulcanverse and the more of the MMO RPG style. Like there's a lot to explore, a lot of quests and different things that you can do within that world. As of the recording today, I'm sure, whenever people are listening to this in 50 years, it's going to be, transformed into something even more awesome. But then there's the land function, where you're able to stake, and there's a certain amount of yield based on how much you stake, as well as how much experience that you're gaining on a daily basis. So you can't generate yield unless you're actually playing the game. That then brings into this whole mechanism of the Sedalian system, where you can essentially partner with other players. Some players have capital and no time. Some players have time but no capital. And so matching those people together, kind of like in a quasi scholarship model, where they can play and you can kind of be the general behind the scenes or the strategist, and then everybody can still participate and earn. So it's a really interesting mechanism. Can you talk about how that has worked how has that worked given your plan and your thinking beforehand? Did that kind of work out how you thought? And how's that going to develop over time?
Yes, it did work out. I mean, because the intention of it was to keep people playing, because that's what you want. Everyone wants users, so it did do that with the Sedalians. I mean, really, it was quite similar to the scholarship system of Axie, but we sort of Sedalians like the Greco-Roman for a scholar back in the day, and so that did work. But it still you still have to tackle the underlying problem that what you're doing is people are logging in and getting their experience, because they don't want to miss out on their staking rewards. So luckily now people are logging in because they actually do want to see each other in world and play the quests and all that kind of stuff. There is more enjoyment to do in the game, but for the initial 2 years, you're still sort of kind of indirectly bribing people to sort of play your game. You're saying you can put your PY on your land, but if you don't, well, I think what was it to get the experience originally? The only thing you had to do is walk around the world. That was the only quest we had, because we have no games, no developers or anything. So every day they call it the landmark run. Like hundreds of people would just log in every day, walk around the world with no speed at all for about an hour, and they would collect their, whether $5, $50, $100, and then go back to it. But they stuck with it. And so, now it's more gameplay. You can earn your experience in different ways, quests, fighting, all this kind of stuff. It's a lot more enjoyable. But, you do wonder seriously, if you took away the staking and all the play to earn stuff, would people still go in there for that thing? And it's risky. I mean, just like Web2 don't want to risk putting NFTs in and an earning economy, I don't think Web3 games yet want to risk taking out the tokens in the earning economy yet, because the opposite might happen.
Yeah, what's cool though too is that if you play for a certain amount of time, you start to get used to it. You start to try to optimize, like for example, the landmark run. Just in doing a lot of research and just trying to dive deep into the ecosystem, I have multiple monitors. I had the map there with the plotted out with arrows and stuff of this is the optimal route of running based on wherever you start, and so I was doing that a lot. It actually became quite fun. And then you have your foraging and whatnot. But I think the cool part too, and you and I have discussed this previously, but just, to get it on record for the pod, and I don't know if this has been changed since I last did the deep dive, but the cool part is that this lava share, this PYR share in the ability to stake and earn over time, there was a set amount of PYR set aside in the very beginning, which may have been a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was, and a certain percentage of that now gets distributed to the landholders pending their performance as far as getting enough experience. At a certain point, though, that initial block of PYR is going to dissipate. And then there will be a day of reckoning, if you will, and a decision made by you guys if there has been enough PYR generated to refill the pool based on a percentage of transaction fees. You need to burn some in order to level up your land, so on and so forth. A portion of that will go back to refill this pool. And if enough has been added in to the pool from those transaction fees, then you continue to yield PYR. But if on the other side there is not enough still in that pool, then it'll switch to more of a lava base. And so I guess my question for you is, how did you come up with that sort of schema? It makes sense. It's like, okay, if we've generated enough, we can continue. Or if we're more focused on the lava at that point, because we have this continuous supply and a continuous demand from the blockchain side, then we'll switch to the lava. How are you thinking about that? And what are just some general thoughts about that framework and that structure, how it's worked out, how you planned it, so on and so forth?
Yeah, you're right. So at the beginning, we had like an amount of peer we set aside, which again is, something you kind of regret as a founder, putting like 20% or whatever stupid it was of the tokens aside for staking and earning, but we've got to adhere to our word. So yeah, as you say, I think it's been on running for 3 years now. I think we've got another year or two of it done, and then it depletes. But for me, it's kind of a win-win situation. On one side, it depletes, and we either replace it with lava, or we haven't got the PYR, which is great. So we don't have to pay that out anymore. But the other win of it all is that it kind of shows, well, okay, is this community around for the game? Do they like the community? I mean, there are plenty of ways to earn in game. You can still forage for NFTs and get XP and earn lava and rent land, rent Vulcanites, and it kind of tests the metal of how strong the game is. And also, it's a challenge for myself that if we haven't managed to replenish like a little bit of the pool by 4 or 5 years, and you've got to ask yourself, something's going wrong with the business. So it's a bit of a challenge for yourself. So I don't think there's any lose-lose in this from a company perspective. For a community perspective, I could understand. A lot of them have sort of, they spent years earning a lot of PYR from hoarding land and doing land. But if it's not sustainable, it's not going to last forever. So it's up to us to kind of work that out. But it would be nice to let the games speak for themselves. And everyone wishes they can go back in time and redesign the economics in the games and which works. They would, but they don't. No company has it right the first year, and we're lucky to have. I think this is like a second chance to get everything right. That bear market was so brutal for everyone. A lot of companies just died during it. And I think we're seeing now the re-emergence of GameFi, blockchain, Bitcoin, all-time high, peers in double digits at the time of this podcast. So I feel like this is like a second chance to get things more fine-tuned and honed in this time round.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, obviously in Neo Tokyo, there's a ton of founders who are earlier in their journeys, earlier in their setting up of the tokenomics. So what advice would you give to those sort of founders who are just getting started? How do you put together a good tokenomics team, and how do you not, shoot yourself in the foot right off the bat?
I think keep it simpler than you imagine. If you're going to start doing crazy maths and economics and all that kind of stuff, you might as well just be creating a DEX or something very cool involving blockchain technology. I mean, people like to game. If they want a game, then make it fun, and also work out your audience. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making a play-to-earn company or gaming if you're saying that's what you're doing it for. I mean, if you went out and say, look, this is not going to be fun, but it's to earn, then make your tokenomics around that. Don't mix it up. From a personal viewpoint, I would say, be very careful with people who come at you in early days. I mean, I made, a mistake in early days where in the beginning, what you think could be a lot of money is, it's not actually a lot of money further down the line. Like people start waving, $20,000, $30,000 at you, maybe $100,000 at the beginning for like 5-10% or whatever you think. And you think, oh, yes. Now just be calm, just trust in yourself a lot more, because those choices do come back and bite you. But no, I mean, if any founder's really listening to this and want some advice, my Twitter and my Discord's always open. I'm always happy to sort of share what I discover along the way.
Awesome. I love the way that you have been able to sort of, continually, I guess, transform and change sort of not only what happens at the game level, but kind of what happens at the corporate level, if you want to call it that, and the structure. What are some advice, and along the same kind of lines, what's some advice for you to be sort of nimble on your feet, and how are you able to do that when you already have so many assets that are out there? I know you constantly talked about, this is what I would have done, that's what I would have done. And I love that mindset where you're constantly evolving and changing. So what's some advice for, some younger entrepreneurs on how to stay nimble and, how to not get maybe too top heavy, and how to have an open mind constantly for the evolving landscape, especially of Web3 and gaming, which is, brand new, essentially, every few months, something new is coming up.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of advice I give applies to sort of most companies, that you're going to have to learn the hard way, the easy way, that you can't do everything yourself. You're going to have to drop that ego eventually. I mean, for everything you think you're good at, that there is a professional out there. I mean, if you're good at what you're doing, you're good at what you're doing. If you're a good CEO, you're a good CEO. But things like tweeting, marketing, writing articles, community moderation, whatever, there are people that have freaking degrees in this, and you see them work, you're like, oh, okay, right, yeah, but that's not my cup of tea, and you've got to let go of that. The other thing is, and this is trouble, because Web3 it's different than most companies. We were saying before this call, because there's a token attached to it, because there's a price attached to it. I doubt you get the Musks and the Bezos of the world looking at their stock prices every single second of the day. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but nothing like crypto. So you're going to have to emotionally detach from the community very early on. Now, one of our pluses was that I was very present with the community very early on, and because of that, in the first year and a half, I was always known. Oh, Jamie's here. What's he got? He's going to hype. And so, but what that also does on the bad side, if things go wrong, you're always there. And if you disappear for a day or two, why is he disappear? Why is he not replying? Oh, his ego. So I would say to any CEOs in Web3, make a choice here. Either you're going to spend 24/7 literally in this Discord or Telegram answering questions and you'll never have any free time, or you're not. So I would delegate. Above all, I would just say the best CEOs probably do the least amount of work, but hire the right people. And that's key. I mean, you're never going to stop worrying about your baby, but the less you do, the better, and find the right people, I suppose.
Yeah, on that same topic, I think one of the biggest differentiators between Web 2 game development and Web 3 game development actually has nothing to do with Web 3. And it's that Web 2 game development takes place behind a closed door with a very little shown. And then Web 3 development is much more, I compare it to stand up, where every single day you're going up there and you're hopping on the stage and you're like, look, this is what I built. And you're getting all this different feedback from all these different stakeholders. So how do you manage that? How do you know, when this is good feedback that should be incorporated into the game or into the project, and when you realize that, hey, they're not seeing the big picture here, and as the leader, I need to continue to truck down this path because this is what I think is the right path.
Right, yeah. I mean, as stressful as it is of having people, it's like, imagine writing a movie script and like, 10,000 people watching your every line and then just saying, well, this isn't funny, this isn't going to do it like that. And you've got this vision in your head and you can't produce it at the end. But that also has its advantages in that you do get to kind of create a game with the most amount of beta testers that any game would want, And when it comes to feedback, I suppose, it's just really common sense. Like, most people are sort of saying, oh, this isn't working, or it's flawed, or it's broken, then yeah, you do kind of listen. But you can use that to your advantage. I think Web3 community, as long as they see you're there, you're transparent, you're listening, then you're already above 90% of the projects there. And especially something with gaming, there's something tangible there. It's fun, it's practical. They can see if it's fun or not. You're not just making another blockchain, and you've got people to help them, and they love seeing cool things. And that's what I just love about gaming and blockchain, because I think just people just get more interested in it because it's something they can relate to. It's all this tech talk is wonderful and DEXs are wonderful things, but when you can see like someone slashing someone in the world of Hades or something, it just makes it a lot more fun. But yeah, I think there are pluses and minuses. But yeah, stand up is a great way to nice analogy there. I like that.
And what's the go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, what's the plan in the future for Elysium, and sort of big picture, and maybe 5 years down the road? What is your plan and your vision for it?
I think we just want to just get it busy as possible. I mean, the tokenomics are lined up so well that the more transactions on Elysium, the more lava is burned, and the only way to get lava is either buy it or hold PYR. So in theory, the more transactions there are, everything becomes more scarce. And I think the Launchpad recently just blew my mind. I didn't know there were that many games or projects wanting to launch. And when I look at Near Tokyo and I look at the Twitter, there are so many people who want to use a launchpad and sort of get going on a chain. That's going to be a real sort of game changer for us, because I think you're in this bubble, you're building your own games, you've only got your own community for so long, you forget that there are tens of thousands of people wanting to get going. So I think really, it's a great, it's a fast chain, it's a cheap chain, but above all, it's our chain, and I think we're sort of proud to have a chain which we can sort of adapt our own economy around it. So 5 years, we'll just hope it's a lot busier than now. That's all I can really hope for. Really, just keep on trucking.
So we're getting pretty close to the top of the hour here. I want to be respectful of your time. Would love to just scope out and basically figure out kind of what your thoughts are on the market as a whole, not necessarily from the perspective of price, although, if you want to talk about that, feel free, please. But from the perspective of like, hey, we've now had about, 2, 3, 4 years since the 2020, 2021 market where gaming really came onto the map and didn't have the best reception once it tanked from the global marketplace. So can you just kind of talk about like what's changed since then? Where are we in the cycle right now of game development and actually having a mass market product? I know we touched on some of these things before, but would love to just understand your full thought process on.
Yeah, so I think Web3 gaming obviously has developed to a stage it wasn't at before. We have to always be thankful, to Axie Infinity for kicking off even the ability to have GameFi. That wasn't really an option before. I mean, we had a few little games that were unheard of, but Axie really sort of brought everything to mainstream. But a few years is not a long time in the world of any industry, and I think we're all going to understand what sticks and what doesn't this time round. There are a lot more games. So we're going to see some of the most fun games which do compete with Web 2. Do they keep the Web 2 users? Will they be up against the same scrutiny as Web 2 games? I think this will be the cycle we work out. Are we competing against Web 2? Are we trying to poach Web 2? Can we work with Web 2, or are we our own demographic? Market-wise, it's an incredible place we're in because everyone knows that GameFi went ballistic last time. Everyone knows Bitcoin is probably on the verge of going ballistic again. So I think you've got to separate, the market hype and the reality of Web3 gaming. So I don't know how far Web3 gaming will go in terms of sustainable users, products. Will it be something around forever? Because if it is, it won't matter on market cycles. Because then you've got people driving into gaming just like World of Warcraft. They play anything, whatever the cycle. So that will be continuously going up. Even if it doesn't, and Web3 for some reason doesn't have that magic moment this cycle, then it will still explode anyway because people remember the GameFi wave last year. Or AI, memes, GameFi, these are 3 guaranteed cycles to blow up. But on a personal note, I would like it to be the moment that we do, all of us together, or one of us finds that magic bullet to make Web3 gaming mass adopted. And then it generally will detach from market sentiment and from Bitcoin. And I think gaming's got the best chance. I know people like AI and buzzwords, but I think AI and tokens, it's a bit of an interesting match. I think it's a bit of a forced match there. But I think gaming and tokens, could be something massively detached from the rest of the market, no matter what Bitcoin does.
And then as you're thinking about too, you're both a founder of a project. You guys have multiple tokens, 2 coins, and many NFTs. But I'm sure you got a little bit of a degen in you. Like how are you kind of thinking about, okay, you also probably want to be able to play the market too, yet you have your own project that you're building. How do you manage that? And how do you stop from FOMOing into a bunch of other projects that are your peers in the marketplace? And
Right. I mean, I'd be a liar if I didn't say I've got a few degen plays going on. I'm not going to give any free shields to anyone on this podcast. I don't know how much we're friends, but I've definitely got some. But really, I mean, this is the horrible thing. Just the reality of game development. It just costs so bloody much. I mean, it does. I mean, the monthly outgoings have to match the monthly ingoings. We were lucky we had such a good bull market last time. That we could have the treasuries to survive, for all these years. A lot of games couldn't, so you've got to keep it up. But of course, I'm very excited. But I'm a terrible trader. I mean, my first, try in blockchain was trading. I think I got into Bitcoin when it was its all-time high of 16. I spent my entire savings on 16K Bitcoin or something, and I just lost it all. And I had to get like a crappy job and earn it all. And that's why I got into NFTs, because of me just learning how to lose all my money in trading. So thank you for that. But I mean, I've got a few risky plays going on. But don't forget, we've also got a launchpad as well, which we're accelerating. Like we've got this Rebel Cars, for example, is massive. That's coming up. We're investing in that. So we're investing in our own projects in Elysium. So I have more control over where they go, and so that'll be our degen plays, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned how, having that big treasury from the last bull helped you guys survive during the bear. What advice would you give to founders of maybe younger projects of what do you have to do during the bull to make sure that you survive the next bear, and maybe how you guys are thinking about it at your own shop?
Yeah, I mean, I think be transparent. If you're going to cash out, you're allowed to cash out. I mean, just be transparent about your unlocks. There's no point not doing it. And we'll focus on security. I mean, we didn't cash out at the top. I mean, we cashed out actually further down the bottom. It rode to 50, and you think, oh, it's going to be 100. We didn't sell anything up there. It was right further in the bottom. And then we had that hack and lost all that money. So we had to make most of our treasury like much in the lower part of that cycle. But we did. So this time round, to anyone, if you do well, just be honest about it. I mean, I think Woo Network or something, or some other project put out recently, we just sold X $1 million to Wintermute, whatever it was, over the counter to make some treasury. No one said a word about it. Done. That's what happens, It's when the people start seeing you doing sneaky little market sales, this, that, and the other, they're going to think, well, hang on, just let us know. We don't mind you making money. Just tell us when the unlocks are. So yeah, just be honest, I suppose.
Yeah, and one question around, to bring it back to sort of that Greco-Roman lore, being from, I believe, London, and then coming and living in Greece, you've been in some absolute capitals of sort of Greco-Roman history. Obviously, England has a deep history there. You've got the History Museum in London, now being in Greece. Is that a part of history you've always been interested in? And is that how it sort of got its inspiration for a lot of the Vulcan Forged lore?
Everyone thinks because I lived in Greece. I moved to Greece because my daughter's she's 5 years old. She's half Greek. Her mother's Greek. We're not together now, but her mother was Greek, and I had to move to Greece for my daughter. So that's why I was in Greece. But Vulcan Forge, a lot of people think that's because I was living in Greece. Little stories. Everyone's using the word minting NFTs. I just thought, well, minting's not very cool, that name. What's another word for mint? So I went to Thesaurus, and one of them was make, build, forge. I thought, oh, wow, forge an NFT. That's really cool. And then a friend to me says, well, what forges? Well, let's look at the gods. What forges? What god? We type in God of Forging. And it turns out that the god of forging is actually Vulcan. So it was like, okay, if you had NFT from us, it was a Vulcan Forged NFT, and that was the idea. So we've been playing this whole Greco-Roman thing with the Vulcan Forge, but it turns out Vulcan isn't actually the Greek name of that god. The Greek name is Hephaestus. So it should really be Hephaestus Forge, but it doesn't work. So that's a story for you.
I love it. A little bit of lore alpha out there for the audience. Yeah, Hephaestus Forge doesn't exactly have the same ring to it.
It sounds like an STD, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, thank God the Romans gave us a little bit of an easier handle.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, as we start to wrap it on up here, just really want to kind of give you a chance to talk about anything that we didn't ask you about, but that we should have. What did we not cover that you think is critical for us to know?
I think you covered everything wonderfully. I think I would like the community, if they get this far listening to what we're saying, then please do remember that POR is more than just a gaming studio. We are a layer one now, and Elysium really generally is very easy to onboard. And just join a community. The good thing about these Web3 gaming communities is everyone's very friendly within them. It's not just degens. We have no price chat in our community. It's all just talk about the games and experience and whatnot. Get involved. Have a look at some of our launchpad projects coming up. They're all, all built highly vetted, highly due diligence. They're connected to exchanges and blah blah blah. So yeah, just get involved and no, you've done a great job, Ben and crew. Thank you.
Well, really appreciate that, and excited that you're finally able to officially announce that you became a citizen, that you're a part of Neo Tokyo. It's always fun to see you in there chopping it up with the other founders, and just everybody kind of getting in the trenches and chatting, talking, and really bringing the vision to life. So just want to thank you for being a part of Neo Tokyo. Thank you for building everything that you're building, and thank you for the time as well.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks,
Nick,
Jamie.
Jared, really appreciate you guys as always for being legendary co-hosts. Everybody who's watching and listening, thank you, because without this, we would just be kind of talking into a computer screen. So thanks for being a part of this with us, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Interlinked, the official podcast of Neo Tokyo. Take care.
Boom.
Nice.
Don't